Hey, this is John Lee Dumas from the Entrepreneur on Fire podcast. You're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and today you're chilling with Nate and AJ on the Not Snowboarding podcast. Prepare to ignite.
Welcome to episode number 17 of the Not Snowboarding podcast. I'm your host, Nate Mousson. So that dude, John Lee Dumas, runs a podcast on entrepreneurship that does something different than all the other podcasts in the entrepreneurship genre. He releases an episode every single day of the year. Before starting his podcast, he knew that he was going into a very competitive space with lots of other good podcasts already established, and that he'd have to do something really different in order to stand out. So against everyone's advice, he decided to be the first to do a daily podcast, and he's been hugely successful because of it. Today's guest is Jensen from Grassroots Powdersurfing. Jeremy is also standing out in a space by doing something differently. His path is one of innovation, education, and recreation, all while balancing work and family. I didn't ask Jeremy directly if he considers himself to be an entrepreneur, and if I had to guess, based on our chat, his answer might be something to the effect of, I'm just a guy that likes to make and use powder surfers. But from my point of view, that's the entrepreneurial sweet spot. Let's jump into the conversation that AJ and I had with Jeremy. Jeremy, you are winning for the best Skype picture so far.
Let me see.
What do I have?
It's you just like laid back, yellow jacket, blue pants, pow surfing, just slashing.
Powder. Nice.
Better than mine?
Well, more action. AJ's might be the best. I don't know if you can see AJ's, but he's like a little young Drake.
I don't have one for him.
No, maybe because I started the call.
Oh, there he is. Yep, there you go. Handsome young man.
Yeah, that's not really him. Or maybe it is. I don't know. So we have a special impromptu guest, too. AJ's got a seat warmer next to him named Nikki.
Hi.
Hi, Nikki.
Where did you pick Nikki up for the podcast, AJ?
Well, I kidnapped her a couple days ago, and we went snowboarding today at North Star, and then I kidnapped her again. I said I had to go home and do a podcast. So, mid-kidnapping. She could warn the authorities, but she hasn't yet.
Okay. So you're not like, you're doing multiple kidnappings? It's not like she's like stuck at your place, like duct taped up to a chair or something?
I don't know, maybe later. I didn't think about that, but yeah, maybe later.
All
no,
right.
Nikki lives in Truckee now, but she is from Europe.
Well, welcome to the podcast, Nikki. Jeremy, we're so stoked to talk with you today, man. I thank you for taking some time out of your schedule. I know that we just chatted a little bit ago, and you are an extremely busy dude. You just kind of came off of a big tour, right? There was SIA, and then you were out at ISPO. So I was wondering, from your point of view, like, what did you see as being big differences between those two shows?
ISPO's a lot bigger, and there's a lot more diversity. And I was kind of stuck in the snowboard area, but I mean, they've got every type of action sports, and it's I think it's the largest trade show in the world or something like that, I've heard. And so there's just a lot more people flying through, and just a lot of more diversity of different types of people, and obviously a lot of different languages. And I think the consumers are quite a bit different. Consumers and the retailers are quite a bit different. Just talking to them, I don't know, it seems like the European market is a little more open to what I do anyways, like a handmade product, that's different, not, it's not a mainstream resort, big money making type of activity. So, but I don't know, I seem to find more a warmer reception there than I do at SIA generally. I mean, it's great at both places, but there just seems to be more people interested in Europe.
What's the international pow surfing scene like? Were there other people at that show with similar companies or products, or are there more people doing it internationally?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's big internationally. Like I sell more product to Europe than I do to the States, by far. And also, to Canada and Japan, and they're all bigger than the States as far as like sales go, and even interest, I've found. As far as other companies, there was Volley was there with the Asmo boards, and then there was a German company called Pogo that makes snowboards, and they had a pow surf model. I think that was it for as far as pow surfers go.
Why do you think it's so much more popular in Europe and overseas? Is it just, well, I could see like in Japan, there's, I've never been there, but I've just heard it just pukes all the time, and the snow is really deep, and I've never really snowboarded in Europe either, but I just picture like big mountains and a lot of snow. Do you think that's what it is, or it's just?
I think it's cultural. It's totally cultural. I mean, they've got a lot of mountains in Europe. But what I get from a lot of people there is that, it doesn't snow very often. They say, you guys get so much more snow, consistent snow in the States. They also say, there's a lot of wind affected, and the weather just has its way with a lot of the snow. And I've never snowboarded there either, actually, until just the other day. Was I took a couple of runs actually just on a snow skate and a little bit of pow surfing in a little resort in Germany, but everywhere I looked was powder. So I I was confused at what everybody tells me. There's no powder here. Maybe they mean on piste at the resort or something like that. But literally everywhere I looked, I was like, oh my God, there's stuff everywhere. Off the side of the road. You don't, not necessarily up high in the mountains. A lot of the time the snow's better at a lower elevation and more protected areas. And so I don't know, it seems like there's a lot of that, like so much terrain to be had there. And also in Japan, there's, you don't need a resort. You just park your car, and you're right next to amazing snow and amazing terrain. And, a lot of places, not all of Japan, but, in Hokkaido, the northern island, and Niseko, where it's, a really big hot spot for riding. And, there's just stuff to hike everywhere. And, so I think it's that combined with just the cultural differences. Like, they're just a little more open to thinking differently and seeing the mountain differently, I think. And maybe they're just ready to take on new stuff and new challenges, or just something different. I don't know. I think it's a combination of a lot of things.
What are some of the logistics you're running into with doing business internationally? I can think back to when I worked at a snowboard shop, and we were doing some business internationally, usually because Australia they would get product. Their product cycle was a year off from ours on a lot of stuff. So they would always order from our shop snowboards at the end of the year when they were on sale on our website, because it would be brand new next year, and they would get them in down there and mark them up or resell them or whatever they were doing with them. But then the shipping measurements changed, and like dimensional weight came into play, and I think anything over, I want to say it was like 42 inches or something, just had an astronomical fee to where it would cost $150 to ship one snowboard to Australia.
Yeah. Southern Hemisphere is tough. I don't sell to the Southern Hemisphere because I can't. It's just shipping's unaffordable, But I can ship to Europe and Japan and Canada and pretty much anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere for a reasonable price. I think maybe they're just a lot more willing to pay what a handmade product is worth, because I get feedback from the European market saying, "Oh, why are the boards so inexpensive? You make these yourself. This is insane." And I'm like, well, here in the States, like, everybody tells me they're too expensive, and I think a lot of people in the States are still of the mindset that they want something, in plastic wrap, straight out of China, cheap and quick, so they can throw it in the gutter and go buy another. It's like, I think the attitude's starting to change more so in the States, but I find a lot of people are like that. they say, oh, this is too expensive. But in Europe, they're just like, wow, this is really inexpensive. Yeah. And they're paying, duties and taxes, a whole lot more shipping, and waiting a whole lot longer of a time. But, they get the product and the boards, and they're just like, wow, these are amazing, and the quality is amazing. And, I can't believe that these are so affordable for us. So I don't know, it's really interesting.
Have you ever been in the middle of an international shipment fiasco where it's stuck in customs forever and the customer's asking you what's up and you're like, I can track it this far and that's it? It looks like it's in customs. Have you ever had any like major issues with some of those international shipments?
They've all came through, but there's been a couple of jams like that. Yeah. Where, eventually it gets worked out. I can, they get the tracking information and I can track it only so far on my end, like you're saying, that when it changes hands in customs, it's pretty tough to deal with. So a lot of the time the customer has to, visit customs and get it worked out, or, have to send some extra receipts or something like that to help them out. But it all gets resolved, and they're usually stoked, even if they have to wait a couple extra days or, pay a little bit of extra duties or something.
Yeah.
They still come away stoked, and I guess everybody comes away stoked. I get really good feedback from all the sales and all the boards, especially when they get on them on snow and stuff. So, everybody's stoked, but in Europe and other places where they do have to wait a little longer and pay the extra duty fees, like they don't seem to be holding them back any.
Yeah, I'm just reminded of a time early in my career at Pit Crew when I first started kind of taking on the international shipping market, and I would get messages from people like, oh, could you mark this as like a gift, or could you mark this as like a very low item? And one of my items got stopped right when I was dropping it off at the post office by a really astute postman who had seen me probably 20 times over the course of the week. And he's like, you're sending a lot of gifts. Like, what's up with all these gifts? It's a federal offense to send an actual product through the mail that is not a gift. And I was like, oh, really? He's like, I'll let you go repackage that if you want. Like, all right, man, thanks. And then one of the ones that I had sent earlier that week got stopped on the other end somewhere, and they started questioning me, and it went on for about a month where it was held, and I had to send some more money to get it out. But it's tricky with the international shipping. So I just thought it was really interesting that you're doing all this international business, and I was wondering if there was any like a distribution channel, like where you have a distributor over there or anything like that, but it doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, no, I do. We've got a handful of shops over there, that carry our stuff. So, and then I do a lot of direct sales over there as well. But I'm not doing business like a snowboard company. Like Powdersurfing's teeny. Like it's on nowhere near the scale that a snowboard company or any other company on the planet probably does business. Grassroots is a really, really small company, and we're not doing like massive amounts of volume and everything like that. The market out there is still really small for it. It's growing as more and more people try it, and word of mouth, and especially if they get on the boards, they're super hyped, and it spreads really fast. But still, compared to something like skiing and snowboarding, it's a minuscule market. It's like a niche within a niche within a niche.
But
are there powder surfing events or contests?
Not so much. There's a few snow skate events that happen around the States, and then if the snow's good, then they'll go out and make some pow laps or whatever. But as far as like a competition or anything like that, like there's nothing like that. And I don't know, it's almost not really even the nature of the sport to have a competition, so, but there's get-togethers. There's, in Japan, a bunch of my friends do sessions, where they meet up together and kind of an open invite thing. And they have a big Powsurf session and just hang out and have drinks and everything. And, it's more just like a party or just a hangout, more so than like a structured event. Like having a structured event just seems almost like the opposite of pow surfing. Kind of. So there's not really a whole lot of that going on.
I equate some of where Powdersurfing is right now to where snowboarding was when I was a kid. Where if I went to my local hill, Bear Paw, Montana, full of skiers in denim jeans, and maybe a busy day is like 40 people on the snow. If there was one other dude snowboarding, and there's like 12-year-old me, whoever that other guy, regardless of whether he was my age or 30s, he was my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just like skateboarding. When I grew up, skateboarding in the 80s and late 80s and early 90s, like if you heard the roar of a skateboard wheel coming down the street, you like ran out your door and found that dude, and he was your bro, like it was. But now, I mean, you hear a million. My ears still perk up when I hear that, because I was so trained as a kid to like being like, oh my God, someone else skates. Like I got to meet this dude, and over the years you meet so many great people through skateboarding and through snowboarding. So my ears still perk up, but it's not quite like it used to be now that there's millions of us skateboarders and millions of us snowboarders.
The other thing that I always do used to do is look at shoes. And first I was just looking when I was younger for a skateboard brand shoe, but then it became kind of culturally cool to wear skate shoes and not even skate. So then you'd have to look and see if the shoes had any like ollie holes or kickflip marks on them or anything. And then you knew. But then shortly after that period, it was like kind of like you said, it was just so common, so many people skated that it wasn't as unique. Maybe just because somebody skated and you shared that bond, that didn't mean that you were going to be friends necessarily at that point.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of not quite how it used to be, but still kind of cool. It's always fun to study shoes, and be like, oh, that guy skates regular, or that guy does a lot of 3 flips, or there's certain tricks that give certain holes on shoes. So if you want to study it real far, there's still some pretty fun shoe study to go on.
Oh yeah, I used to always get like the Ed Templetons or Chris Sands or something with the full toe wrap, because mine would split right at the end, not from doing lots of kickflips necessarily, but from attempting a lot of kickflips.
Yeah. The classic ollie impossible hole on the toe used to always happen a lot. That was probably Ed Templeton's biggest shoe feature there, because he did a lot of those back in the day, I remember.
Yeah. So maybe you could walk us back, kind of take us to a time before Grassroots was around, and tell us how you got into Powdersurfing, and then how you decided to make it a business.
Back in the late 90s, I mean, I've always snowboarded, obviously, started skateboarding. Skied since I was 2. My dad taught me to ski when I was 2, and then found skateboarding at like 13, and was super stoked on that. And then snowboarding was kind of just a way I could skateboard on snow back then. So, snowboarded for quite a few years, and eventually, started moving a lot into the backcountry. I did a lot of jumping and big air contests, slope style, that kind of stuff, and then a lot of backcountry riding too. And so just cruising the backcountry a lot, you just realize that, you can stand on these boards in between the bindings and turn them, if there's a few inches of soft snow. So I just started playing around with like stomp pads on different snowboards in between the bindings, and then just cutting up some snowboards, just trying to make different shapes to actually get them to work well. Because I mean, you could make them turn if the snow was really deep, but they really didn't work very well.
Do you remember a particular day that you first started doing that? Because that's kind of a random thing. Usually you want to like snowboard down something strapped in, right?
Yeah, but like it started just getting from A to B. Like we'd be hitting a kicker in the backcountry, and one guy's filming, and then it's like the next guy's turn to film, and just to instead of strapping in and riding over to where the camera is, it's a mellow enough slope. You just jump on the board with your feet in between the bindings, and make a couple turns down to there, jump off the board, and grab the camera. Instead of bothering to strap in and then unstrap and all that. So it started out just a little. Riding pretty short, a few turns and mellow slopes, and you're like, oh wow, I totally just made 4 turns, and jumped off, and I was all good. And so you realize you can do it, back then, and then you just, I don't know, once in a while you get bored in the backcountry, and you're like, well, what if we just take a whole run without the bindings? And so I started putting just little extra pieces of stomp pad on all my boards, so I'd have that option to do, play around like that if I wanted to. When I was hiking around in the backcountry, in between jumps or whatever, or in between POW lines, and just kind of grew. I mean, it felt really cool, even though the boards were so big and clunky. You're standing on this giant snowboard with a huge nose because you're riding it back on the tail, and in order to make it turn. And so, I just started chopping them down from there and making them shorter, and then making them, trying to manipulate the shapes to get them to turn better. But really, it was just they were getting too skinny, and snowboards were kind of too skinny as it was to perform really well like that. So I started eventually just from scratch, and being able to shape them completely, make them as wide as I wanted to, make them the right rocker that I wanted to, or camber, or whichever I was experimenting with at the time. And just kind of grew from there and just started making them as Grassroots, kind of from the very beginning, and just refining shapes. I didn't really have anywhere to start because there wasn't anything like that back then, so we didn't really have anything to copy from. It was just you'd make a shape that you thought might work and might float well and be a good like size as far as length goes, and then you'd ride and then trim and then ride and trim it a little bit more, and then just kind of build another one and cut a different shape into it, and just adjust and shape and reshape as in between rides, or in between days riding.
What were you working with as far as a wood shop? Or did you have like a full on wood shop and a press, or what were the logistics of actually making it and shaping it?
No, using like just a super ghetto like rigged up press that me and a couple friends made, just enough to like be able to bend the plywood in the right ways. I mean, I could move it around and adjust rocker and camber and everything, and adjust tail kick and everything. And it was super ghetto setup. It was just made out of scrap wood that I'd gotten in my garage when I bought my house. And because I didn't have any money to dump into it, so it was really just screwing around. Like at that time, we didn't really think, we're gonna make these for people. It was so hard. It took us so much time just to make a board for ourselves that we were like, man, this would kill us to have to make these for people.
So this is. Oh, were you gonna say something, AJ?
Yeah, I was gonna ask. What was it like trying to figure out, like, once you started, kind of getting beyond just like carving and actually trying to like ollie or kickflip? Did you have to change how you did it, like say on a skateboard, or
Yeah, it's quite a bit different than on a skateboard. You don't get the pop and the flick as like you would on a skateboard, super quick. You can still ollie, but it's not as poppy of an ollie, obviously, and it's not consistent, depending on how the snow is. You can get really good pop out of 5 inches of dense snow, or if it's 10 inches of light snow, you're not going to get very much pop out of it as far as an ollie goes. So it's different every time. On a skateboard, it's consistent every time, right? Like you clack the ollie, you're riding on cement or wood or whatever, it's really consistent. But with Powdersurfing, it was different, and every time you went, every bit of snow condition and made it different. So it's kind of a tough adjustment, and it's the motions are not quite as lightning fast as skateboarding. You have to really slow things down on a Powdersurfer. To like a kickflip, for instance, you got to do it extra slow and try to catch it at the right time. It's not going to pop up as high as it would like a skateboard would, and so you have to make a bunch of adjustments for that. I mean, it was a little bit tricky, but it didn't take that long, Like I think that I pulled the first kickflip I tried, or the second kickflip I ever tried, actually. And me and my buddies were looking at each other like, what the fuck just happened? Because we talked about it, and we thought, yeah, maybe in like 5 years when we get really good at this, we'll be able to do something like that. But it just came one day, like the right jump and the right conditions just happened, and just kind of opened our eyes, and then started trying more different skate style tricks, and shove-its always came really easy, and then big spins, and you just start small and move up from there.
And the kickflip's documented too, right? There's video footage of it.
Yeah, that first one, yeah.
What is your opinion on leashes? I mean, you're talking about a big spin. I'm seeing like a freaking leash being like wrapped all over my leg.
Well, I mount the leashes in the middle. of the board, so you can do a big spin. It's not going to wrap anywhere because it's attached to the middle. And if you have the right type of leash, like the bungee coiled leashes they kind of get in the way and that kind of stuff. But if you use like like a paracord leash, or I use like a retractable leash that's made of paracord, and it's really good in staying out of the way. Like you can do shove-its and 360 shove-its. It's not going to wrap around anything. And then you can do, a kick flip. Sometimes it'll wrap around the board, but once you land, it just slides out the back. I can usually do a kick flip with the leash on. 360 kick flip I've done with the leash on. I just have to pull out some slack. But ideally, if I'm in a zone where I don't need that leash, I'll not wear the leash. Leashes are awful. Leashes are like the most dangerous part of the whole activity, I think.
I agree. I feel like it's a step back in time. I feel like snowboarding is just pretty much eschewed gotten rid of the leash. It's pretty common to not have a leash anywhere in snowboarding unless you want to do it as a joke right now. And then
right. I mean, those things were never needed in the first place, though. That was like a joke from the beginning.
Right. Exactly.
Your board's going to fall off your feet, and the binding is going to come off or something while you're on the lift. That was always funny when resorts made you have like a snowboard leash. It never made sense to me.
So back when it's like you and your friends kind of still in this development phase and you're just doing it for fun, what time period, roughly what year is that?
It was like 2007, I think, when we started. Well, when we started like with our own, like building our own boards, and developing and shaping our own stuff from scratch. It was like 2007-ish.
And the Grassroots name, how did that come about? Was that already in place at that time?
Well, I started Grassroots as a skateboard company back in like 2000. We just printed skate decks and made clothing and stuff, just kind of something to revive like skateboarding in my hometown. It was kind of dying and kids were losing stoke. And so me and a couple friends started this as a skate company just to get kids stoked and sell some boards and make some art. And, it never even like broke even or anything. I just lost a bunch of money on it really, but it was cool. It energized the community and got people stoked. And then I'd always wanted to do snow stuff because I was way into snowboarding, but there was no way I could ever afford to do like a snowboard. It's way out of my price range. And then, when I started building these Powdersurfers, I painted that on the first one. I was like, hell yeah, Grassroots Powdersurfing. Here we go.
So the skateboard company was just a primer for it. You didn't know it at the time, but it was really just setting you up for the Powdersurfing company. The whole time this is going on, you're going to school too, right?
Yeah. I mean, like Grassroots was as the skateboard company. It was like my undergrad. I was kind of using it just as a little outlet to do some graphic design stuff for my undergrad, and yeah, I eventually graduated from that, and I think I was out of school when I started doing the Powdersurfing thing. I graduated probably like a year before. With my undergrad, and then we started making the Powdersurfers. Sorry, I think I might have lost your question in there somewhere. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. It was really just kind of leading to a little bit what we talked about a few minutes ago when we were chatting on the phone, is how really you've been able to tie in Grassroots into your academic journey, so to say.
Yeah, more so the Powdersurfing part. Like I went back to school. Let's see, it's 3.5 years ago, whenever that was. So I just graduated in December, but yeah, I was able to, a lot of the film, short films I was doing, was kind of my creative outlet for a while I was, I'd graduated my undergrad, and that was just part of what else I was doing to help promote Powdersurfing and, just sharpen up my video skills. I've always worked as a videographer and a editor for the university that I graduated from. So I was working for them the whole time, and then in my free time I do skate videos, I do snowboard videos, and then when Powdersurfing came along, I started making Powdersurfing videos. So yeah, when I did go back to or when I got invited to go to grad school up there, my major professor had seen a lot of the short films I was making, and he was really hyped on them, and I told him about a project I was working on, which a documentary kind of about the roots and of our end of it, the Grassroots end of it, and just kind of bouncing around the world. had this idea to make a documentary film about it, and he really liked that. And he's like, well, you should come to grad school and do that for your main, focus. And so he kind of talked me into coming back to school and doing grad school. And yeah, that's what I've been doing for the past 3.5 years. I just graduated in December, like I say, in the White Waves film. It's a documentary film on Powdersurfing that I just finished up. That was my final project for school. So yeah, I was able to kind of weave that in and make it happen. I don't think it could happen any other way, because just time in life doesn't really allow me to do that, working full time and having a family and trying to do Grassroots and make all these videos and be the photographer and be the guy who builds them all and the guy who ships them all and the guy who does the website. I mean, literally I do everything for Grassroots. It's a one-man company. And so,
and find some time to actually go pow surfing yourself.
Yeah. I mean, and that's part of it. Like, I mean, that was kind of my excuse to allow myself to do this, to be able to justify going pow surfing all the time and continue to go snowboarding as much as I, have done over my life. I've ever since I was 19, I would get, 150 days on snowboarding. I was super addicted to it. And, when I got older and finished up school and got married, like, how am I going to justify going snowboarding 100+ days a year? Like, I just couldn't do it. And, starting this powdersurfing company helped me to be able to justify that to my wife and myself, and just help me, like, motivate me even further to create the time to do that and to create an excuse to do that in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm 39. I'll be 39 like next week, and so yeah, like, it just, as life moves on, you get a lot more responsibility, and so really have to change your life around to make it possible to do all those things that you did when you were in your 20s.
Do you have a deal with, it's Utah State that you work with, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Do you have a deal with them and maybe with your wife? Like, if it snows more than a foot, it's just like a rule, like you're gone.
I wish. No, it doesn't quite work that way, but
sometimes you get sick on those snow days.
Probably off the record.
I know.
Yeah, they're pretty understanding. Like, they've seen, and they understand that I've been, working on a graduate degree the same time I'm working full time for them too. So they've been understanding. And when I needed to travel to do some interviews for this project, and I still have to take annual leave, and everything, and do it by the book, but they're understanding of me and what I've got going on. So I earn a decent amount of paid vacation days and sick days working there. So it works out. I try to take advantage of my weekends. For the most part, I'm kind of a weekend warrior, but I'll get a couple days in between there sometimes. Or if I go on a trip, I'll get like, I just went to Canada for a quick trip, and I think we were there 12 days, and that was 12 straight days of snowboarding, or pow surfing rather. And when I do get those moments, I take advantage of every single day and every single hour, and get as much as I can in the time that I do have. Like, I think the guys I was with were getting pretty tired of me saying, "Oh, let's just do one more run, let's grab one more shot, let's turn fire up the snowmobiles and turn the headlights on. Let me hit this cliff." They were just like, "Let's go home and eat. We're over this." But when I get those windows, when I do have time off work, I want to make the most of it, and so I take advantage of whatever time I can make. So that's how I get all that done.
That's rad, man. You just kind of casually mentioned that you did this White Waves powder surfing documentary, and I haven't watched it yet, but it's available on Vimeo, right? And it's like a full-length movie. I was wondering if you could maybe share a little bit more about what it took to produce that, and where all you traveled, and kind of what the inspiration for the movie was.
It took an unbelievable amount of work, really. 3 years of like shooting and interviews, and traveling. I went to BC a couple of those years and interviewed some guys. And then I went to Japan and spent just like 9 days out there with a couple different crews. But the part in the movie was just actually just 3 days of riding in Nagano with some really incredible guys that I was able to link up with there. And then I was able to catch up with Terry Hawkinson for an interview. And he helped me out with, giving me some footage as well. And yeah, just a lot of shooting, a lot of it, most of it was shot in Utah, and some in BC, some in Idaho, Wyoming, like places that are nearby to me, because I don't really have a travel budget. This entire film was made out of my own pocket. So, and it's mostly shot by myself and a handful of others, a handful of friends, and so it was a ton of work, and just in getting the footage alone, and then of course the editing was just brutal. If anybody's ever edited films, they would know. But this was searching through thousands and thousands of clips. Like I shoot a lot when I go powsurfing, and so there's just 3 years of just stacks of clips that I had to sort through to make this story happen. And a lot of what I wrote from the beginning didn't actually didn't pan out in the end. Like I wasn't able to get some of the guys I wanted to interview, or some of the things just didn't quite come out right. So it's had to be kind of rewritten and changed along the way in the editing room. And so it was an incredible amount of work. It about killed me. So
Do you think you'll do another one?
Oh man, probably not for a little while. I need a rest big time. I'll keep doing the short films. I usually do the Powsurf Chronicle films, the shorter, more digestible and shareable Powsurf films, and those are a lot easier for me to do, and without getting completely burnt out. This project was just so huge, and it kind of kept me from being able to release Chronicles this year so far. So I'll probably get one or two of the Powsurf Chronicle episodes done in the next couple months, but the majority, the fans are going to have to settle for White Waves, which is incredible. So it'll blow all those episodes way out of the water.
Did you do White Waves as your thesis for your master's?
Yeah, it was my final project for my thesis.
Did you get an A on it?
I did. I got I graduated with all A's. Actually, it was, I don't know how in the world that happened. What do they call it? Cum laude or whatever. I don't even know what they call it. But
Mazel tov.
But yeah, I graduated. With all A's, which was kind of unheard of. I didn't do that well in my undergrad, that's for sure. But yeah, I think my professors were pretty impressed with it. My major professor who brought me on, actually, he passed away halfway through my career in grad school there, and so that was a bummer. He didn't get to see the final project, but it's kind of dedicated to him. At the end, if you do watch the film, you'll see that. But.
And that was the guy that really kind of prodded you in the beginning and said, hey, you should take all this and bring it to your education, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was something that I was going to do, and he just told me I could kill a couple birds with one stone here, and so he kind of talked me into it. I definitely would have done it. It was something I was going to do, 3-4 years ago even, and so it got pushed back because it was a 3.5 year program. And, I had all this stuff that I wanted to get out right away, like the history of Grassroots and a lot of the more current stuff that we were doing. I really wanted to get it out there, but I just had to kind of put that on the back burner. And in turn, I got a master's degree with it. So I guess that's a good thing. But don't get me wrong, that was not all I had to do for my master's. It was that was just a small part of 3.5 years of really hard work.
Right.
I was about to say, like, how can other kids that want to go to school but snowboard convince their professors to just let them work on snowboarding documentaries or snowboarding
Right.
related
Well,
projects.
Alan Hashimoto, he's the guy that brought me to grad school. He's an amazing individual, an amazing artist. He was just an incredible person, and I think I don't know if anywhere else would have had me, but it was really cool to have him actually come to me, or it probably never would have happened that way. So I've got him to thank for that. I don't know if all the kids out there, if they can find somebody as amazing as Alan Hashimoto, then you're all set.
So the documentary is available on Vimeo. Is it available anywhere else, like iTunes maybe?
No, I couldn't get it on there. They wanted they wanted me to go through like some other form of like aggregators or something, like some company, like production companies that I guess do this for a living. You have to have 100 uploads or something on iTunes to be able to be eligible to do sales through iTunes. And so, man, I don't have any money at all. Like I poured everything I had into making that film. And so, Vimeo was a lot more reasonable with their pricing for me as a way to distribute it. It'll be going around. I'm submitting it to film festivals, nationwide and worldwide for the next 8 months of showings and such. So it'll be showing around, at film festivals and then a couple screenings. I think there's a screening in Alaska on the 20th of February in Fairbanks, and then there's a showing in Vermont on the 18th of February, I believe. So I'm going to try to set up screenings around, anyone that can help me out, that's willing to do a screening. Like I usually send them the film and try to get them like a box of swag and stuff. And
Are you doing one in Tahoe?
no, not yet. But I'd love there to be one. Anybody in Tahoe?
Well, I'm in Tahoe. We could probably work something out. Let's talk after this.
Yeah, right on.
I have one friend here, DJ, who has a Grassroots Powdersurfer. Actually, I was just talking to him a half hour. He was so stoked that we're going to be talking with you. But I would offer to do one out here in the Washington D.C. or Gettysburg area. But I just don't think, besides DJ, myself, and a couple of friends that we could rally up, that we would have a huge audience of Powdersurfers.
Yeah, it's kind of a location thing. So I've been, I think we're going to try to do one out in Switzerland. We're trying to just pick the hot spots around that. It's not like we're not like TGR that travels all over the world with a million, giant venues. So I'm just one guy running a pow surf company and doing what I can, and getting by with help from friends is the beautiful thing. So it's kind of what Grassroots has been about since the beginning. Like just a handful of friends helping out and making things happen. And so
I'm really surprised about the iTunes thing because you're like the original snowboard podcaster. I came across you have two podcasts back from 2006 that I came across back when I was researching and just thinking about the idea for a snowboarding podcast. And my first impression was like, whoa, the guy from Grassroots did this already. I guess maybe I shouldn't do a podcast. And then I looked, and it's like all your skateboarding and snowboarding video parts. So I'm almost wondering if there's a way for you to put the documentary up under a podcast, a paid podcast or something like that.
Yeah, I wonder. I haven't looked into the podcast thing since 2006. Probably that's kind of when it was first coming out, and I was thinking, oh, maybe this will be the next big thing, and then it kind of faded a little in popularity, and I don't know. It's probably kind of back. It's just I'm spread so thin with everything I do that I just I forgot. In fact, just when you mentioned that totally, I'd forgotten I even had podcast stuff up there. So. But yeah, maybe I should look into that.
Are you paying to host that content? I know that at least that's how it works for me, is that I have this content out there somewhere and it's hosted. No, you're not?
No, it must be grandfathered in there from like because like I say, it was like when it first came out, like when like it first came out on iTunes forever ago, at least as far as I knew. Like it was like the new thing in media all of a sudden, and So yeah, I don't know. I better not be paying. Otherwise, I'm paying.
I want to get on your program. I might be switching some things over to your account here soon.
Right on.
What do you see for you keep calling it the binding list market, and I guess that's kind of the combination of Powdersurfing and snow skating and the two different types of snow skating. And you mentioned that Powdersurfing specifically is like really small, a niche within a niche within a niche. What do you see for future growth?
Well, I think it'll keep growing. I mean, obviously it's super hot right now. Like snowboard companies are starting to jump on the bandwagon and create something similar, or obviously like big name riders get on them and they love it. Like snowboard legends. People that are really good at this, like they see it and they're like, wow, that looks amazing. That's what I want to try. And they do it. And sure enough, it's like, the best thing they've done on snow. And so like that sort of word of mouth and that sort of clout travels pretty far, even though it's not, very mainstream, there's not, millions of people doing it. Like the people that are doing it are influential people, and they're people that kids look up to. And even if they're not, like the people that are doing it are they're so passionate about it because it is like that much fun. Like, I get emails from people that are like, oh my God, that was the most fun I've ever had on snow in my life. And, I've been a pro skier for 30 years or a pro snowboarder for 20 years.
Wow.
And I, reading stuff like that, I'm like, oh my God, that's awesome. Like that makes, all this work worthwhile to get feedback like that from people and, saying that this is the most fun, the funnest board they've ever ridden in their life after, decades of riding. So, I think the fun factor is what's doing it. It's just, it really is like that amazing feeling and, that kind of word travels, and then the films, people can see it and they can kind of they can see how, what's possible and see how it differs from snowboarding and in the style and, kind of the beauty of it. And I think it just brings people back. It brings a lot of people back to their roots, like it makes them think about when they first started snowboarding. It makes them feel like little kids again, because they're learning this new thing. It's new yet still familiar, or maybe it's taking them back to their skateboard days. And, I kind of try to throw in little subtleties that help bring people back, like in some of the graphics, there's one that almost has like a Noah Selaznick feel, with the skate trucks on it, or like, the Jeff Brushy look with one of the Fishbone logos that I do. And, just these little subtleties that help remind people of their past. Cause like, that's kind of what it's all about is bringing things full circle and going back to, the original intention of snowboarding, which was to surf mountains. And with Powdersurfing, you're literally surfing mountains. And so I think there's just that connection with a lot of people. Snowboarding is getting mature and a lot of people have been doing it for 30 years. And so it brings them back to the beginning and makes it new and fresh again. And I think that's worth a lot. It's like a fountain of youth. And when they feel that, they're blown away. And of course they share that with people or they tell their buddy and their buddy tells their buddy and they pass the videos along. It's kind of contagious like that because it's based and founded on, the things that started snowboarding and the reasons we started snowboarding and skateboarding and things. So
I think that you're on the precipice of exponential growth, kind of like we were talking before. If you see another dude pow surfing randomly, you're friends. And I think that the one thing that separates when I look at the board sports, right, surfing, skateboarding, and snowboarding, are the bindings. And when I was a kid, I had a shitty little Veriflex board that I'd asked my mom and dad for like a Mark Gonzalez, and they get me this Veriflex board. And it's like convex, not concave, and everybody made fun of me. So I like hated it. And the first time it snowed, any decent amount, I took my trucks off and went over to the College Hill and tried to snowboard on it. And of course it didn't work. It didn't work very well. Maybe I made it a foot or two. But that is what really snowboarding was trying to replicate, was just that feeling of standing on a skateboard. And that's where is missing in snowboarding too, are the bindings. And I mentioned that I've got my one friend DJ here with the one Powdersurfer. The day or two that there's enough snow here, it's him, and he could make money like by $5 a turn, because there's like 5 or 6 guys that all want to try it. They go to like the biggest hill that they can walk up because the ski resort won't let you on, and they're just like sharing it all day long. And I unfortunately wasn't there on one of those 2 or 3 days that they were out doing that, but the stoke is like real. That's you figured it out. You know, you've gotten rid of the bindings and made a functional board you can ride. It's not the shitty Veriflex board where the rails were clogging up with the heavy wet snow and I was like falling off. But I've been saying it for years that I didn't know if it was going to be like snow skating or like what the interface is. There's like these 3 different camps, right? There's the pow surf, there's the snow skate, like the premier style that those guys are just doing like all the street skateboard tricks. And then there's the subdeck style. And that's the one that I've ridden a fair amount and can actually like make it down the mountain on. But you know, if we had snow, I think that the pow surfing would probably be what would want to do all the time. I'm wondering, one of the questions that a couple of folks had is, you know, now that you're pow surfing, do you ever pick up your snowboard?
Yeah, I pick up my snowboard. I'll go out. I don't know, not nearly as much as I used to, maybe 10% of the time now. But it just depends. Like I was pretty hurt. I've got some back problems and knee problems and ankle problems. And so yeah, I've got a lot of chronic pain from all the years of snowboarding and skateboarding. And so that's one of the things that motivated me to pow surf in the first place. Like I could challenge myself without having to, jump 60 feet. With snowboarding, it's super fun, but it just everything became so easy that you have to like almost risk your life to get the thrill, like to really get that adrenaline rush. And so, it was nice to hop on a pow surfer and have, that technical challenge without having to go 60 feet. I could do like a 10-foot drop even, and it's like, it feels pretty big on a pow surfer. And just the satisfaction you get out of just making turns and completing a run, without falling. And I mean, just the feeling I don't know, it just kind of gave me new life, and it helped allow my body to kind of heal up over the years. Like I'm still kind of in the healing process, but the more I heal, the more I'm stoked to strap back on my snowboard and, go out and send it. Like it really just depends on where I'm riding. If I'm riding, big mountains with heavy gnar factor, then I'll snowboard down. And, if I want to drop some big cliffs in the middle, I'll strap in and snowboard down. If I want to hit a booter and, get inverted and launch some huge airs, then I'll strap my snowboard on. And, or if I'm just at a hard packed day at the resort, I'll ride a snowboard or I'll ride a bideck snow skate. If I'm at a small mountain, like those bideck snow skates make those small mountains super fun. Yeah, I'll ride any board, man. I love snowboarding. I love pow surfing. I love snow skating. Like it's just kind of there's all these boards for different occasions and different types of fun. So I don't see any sense in giving up any of them. It's best to kind of embrace them all. And it's just like surfing. They've got quivers of boards to for every different type of wave and condition. And so snowboarding, snow riding should be the same, I think.
That's a good way to think about it. Just kind of think of it all in the same thing, but I'm just going to choose the right board for the right conditions. It sounds like you need to move a little bit north up to Colorado to get in on some of that free marijuana to like help all your ankle, knee, and joint pains.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't quite help, unfortunately. I don't know. It's too many knee surgeries and ankle surgeries and bone spurs in my joints and too many flat landings, on a snowboard is a lot of what has hurt my back. And, snowboarding is really, the impact is heavy, even when you land everything all day long, from dropping cliffs all day, big cliffs and, landing booters, like it's still, riding in the park, like it wrecks your body, like, without even falling, like there's a lot of compression going on. And so with pow surfing, like I can I can still go like big, and it feels amazing, and it's a little softer on the landings, and the scale is so much different that I can get my stoke without having to risk my life, and damage my body. It's still definitely dangerous. You can blow your knees apart on a pow surfer. You land 1 foot on, 1 foot off, you're in a world of hurt. Or if you obviously fall a lot more, so you hit a little rock and you go tumbling through rocks without being able to stop. Like, you get wrapped up in your leash, you get hit by the board. There's still plenty of risk involved. But at least I'm not getting hurt not falling like snowboarding.
Shark attacks, jellyfish.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me.
Poor surfing jokes. Has pow surfing influenced like your riding style when you are on a snowboard? Has it influenced your board choice? I guess one of the questions was, what snowboard do you ride when you do ride?
I've got this super awesome little, it's a High Tide is the name of the company. It's a guy he used to shape for Yes, Akasha Weisberg, and Gabe Langlois up in Canada. They started this company. And the board that I got from Kasha is it's like a 149, and it's like super wide and just this rad pow shape, and it's it floats super good. Like, I've always rode 160 snowboards or bigger, and then a 157 for a park board or a jumping board, and so like coming back to these shorter, fatter boards that float really well without being long and clunky, like getting your float out of width is so much nicer than out of length. I think it just allows you a lot more agility, and you just like, it just feels kind of more fun in a lot of ways. I mean, there's still some times where I prefer to have a longer board in some situations, but I'm really digging the High Tide board and just the wider, shorter boards, when I do ride, because I've got, I got bigger feet, and I've got, I like riding powder, so obviously I want something that floats really well. Like, it's kind of, like a lot of the boards that are coming out of Japan, like they're wider and they're shorter, and, Japanese people have really small feet anyways, and so they're really wide on a lot of Asian riders, and so I don't know, I'm really digging that snowboard. And a lot of that probably comes from pow surfing. Like, the boards I make are short, they're short and wide, so they're really agile and they float incredibly well. People think it's kind of weird, like, how am I going to ride a 140 pow surfer? And I just have to be like, trust me, wait till you get on it and feel it, and you'll realize why. Like, you don't want like a 160 pow surfer. Like, it's be incredibly hard to ride in anything that was less than a couple feet deep.
I'm picturing the board that you described as being kind of like a pointy nose and like maybe like a widest under the front binding. Does that sound about right?
It's not pointy nose. No, it's I wish I had. It's stuck in my closet right now, but no, it's a rounded nose and tail, but just overall wider, and it's still like somewhat twin looking. It's set back a couple of inches. But it's not like your directional powder board. Like, I like twins, like I was looking at that. I don't know if you saw any boards coming out of SIA, but the Yes 2020 is like a twin floater, rad idea. Like, that's the type of board that I'd really like to get under my feet. Like, shorter, wider, and it's made for floating, and it's a twin. Like, you can mix it up. You can go both ways. Like, a lot of my pow surfers I'll ride a directional pow surfer on one day, and I'll ride a twin another day. It just depends on the snow and the slope I'm riding. Like, but I would never just like slave myself to going one way. Like, I've always liked to ride, forwards and backwards whenever possible. My legs get too tired riding one way,
Right.
I like doing 180s. I like doing half cabs. I like doing 540s. Like, got to be able to go backwards. So I really dig the twin stuff.
That's always been one limitation on most of those powder boards. You'll look at them, and especially now with all the different shapes that are coming out, and you probably saw it even more so at ISPO and SIA. just boards with almost like flat tails that take me right back to the 90s, where it's like going backwards is like a dice roll on this thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a big trend in snowboard. You know how snowboarding is with its trends. They'll, whatever the market is calling for the next year, every single company jumps on it, like flies to shit, and basically almost overdoes the trend until it's dead. And then, the next year, the next 2 years later, they'll jump on something else. So yeah, I mean, a lot of those, there's a lot of cool shapes out there. And then there's a lot that, you just kind of wonder, like, did you even think this through, or did you just jump on the powder shape bandwagon, So I don't know. So, but there's a million different types of riders out there too. Some people just want to ride straight, want to ride directional, and they'll find that board. I think it's a good thing. Oops, my computer fell asleep. Sorry.
No worries.
I think it's a good thing that for snowboarding, I think it's going to help save it. Like realizing Quivers. Like you need. You should have more than one board. You should have 2 or 3 boards to pick from, and instead of the same popsicle stick shape. So like, I like the trend that there's more new or different looking shapes. I shouldn't say new, but different looking shapes coming back into snowboarding, and hopefully people realize that it should be a Quiver thing if they want to get the most enjoyment out of it. And they should not only should everyone have 3 different snowboards, they should probably have a Powsurfer and a snow skate, at least one. Like Powsurfing itself is a Quiver sport. If you want to be able to get the most out of each day out there, like you'd be best off having 3 Powsurfers at the least.
Yeah, you saying that has really helped me wrap my mind around just the whole pow surfing versus snow skating versus like the snow skating with no subdeck idea. Is that I was looking for one to rise up and be like, this is it out of the 3, but that's not it. They're all valid in their own way, and they're all the right thing for the right situation. And I just need to think of it as,
especially with a bindingless board, especially, you're not going to have one board that you can ride with no bindings that rules everything. Like you can get a bideck snow skate and it's super fun in the park and you could do a lot of tricks on it. But when you get riding down steep mountains, like the thing's squirrely as shit, it's all over the place. And so then you get like a long ski on your snow skate. And so you're really good at the, going fast in those steeper terrains, but then all of a sudden you can't ollie, you can't go backwards. And, like every single change has give and take, like you could get a Powsurfer and then, well, you can't go anywhere because there's no powder, and so you got to have, if you want to get the most out of everything, like you got to have each one. They each give a different feel. The feeling you get riding a Powsurfer on powder is completely different than riding a bideck snow skate or a bideck powder skate, with a big ski on the bottom. It's a completely different feeling and completely different possibilities. And so you're kind of cheating yourself if you don't open yourself up to each one of those, different types of bindingless riding and binding riding for that matter,
Yeah, my wife is going to kill me. I already have probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 different boards if you start to count like surf and skate and snowboards. But now I've definitely got reason for like 3 or 4 more just based off of this conversation.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like riding boards is a lifestyle, so like she should be all right with that. She married you, right?
Yeah. She's all right with it as long as she gets a new snowboard every year.
Yeah, no, my wife's the same way. I got just hordes of boards all over the place that, just the ones that are mine. And then, having a powder surfing company that operates out of my house, there's, the whole home is, my entire basement's crowded with these things that are either being shipped out or worked on, or they're my old boards, or they're the boards I'm riding right now, or, there's literally, over 100 boards, like just sitting around.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, I guess, but most of them, they're not all mine. So they're for the customers, a lot of them. But
so as we start to wind down here, one question that I like to ask that's brought about some pretty interesting results, I think, are, especially given your journey being so unique and kind of leveraging your academic journey through grad school to really kind of fuel the Powdersurfing company. Is there anything that you said you're 38 or 39?
Yeah, I'll be 39 like in a couple days,
Yeah.
4 days.
So is there anything that 39-year-old Jeremy would go back and tell 18-year-old Jeremy?
Oh, yeah, start Powdersurfing sooner. No, yeah, I don't know. Maybe pay more attention to your landings when you're snowboarding. Don't just, go huge just because you really want to go huge. Maybe don't spread yourself so thin. I learned a lot of things when it comes to like video skills and web skills and all these different like technical things that I learned in school. So many of each one that like I dabble in each, but I probably would have been better off just like hard focusing on one. I don't know, definitely 18-year-old. Maybe don't even go to college for another 10 years or, I don't know. There's a lot of things I tell myself. I don't think I did. I don't regret anything in my past life, but, there's a lot of advice I guess I could give to myself, but I don't know. I don't know if things would end up any different anyways.
I always jump to, like, if someone was going to ask me, I would just like tell myself how to make a lot of money. Like buy Google, like buy Apple, like whatever it was going to be, and create the next Facebook. That's the one that AJ always says. AJ, are you still there? I know that you got Nikki right next to you. Did you get distracted?
I might have gotten a little distracted. Let's blame her. Yeah, I'm still here. I was just listening to you guys.
Yeah, I've never been like that focused on making like a lot of money. Like I value like experience in life a lot more than making money, and that's probably why I'm dumb enough to have a Powdersurfing company. Like create this little sport that has next to no, like the teeniest little market in the world, and pour your life into it. But it's definitely not a money maker. But I get to meet a lot of really amazing people, and I get to go riding a lot and have really good times with my friends, and really just I've met so many cool people since I've started doing this that are really passionate about riding, and so I think that's like the best part of it all.
Yeah,
I think people underestimate the value of that lifestyle. Like I don't have a lot of money by any means, so I can say like, oh, it's great not having money, but just living the life I want to live and having so many rad experiences is way more valuable to me than having a lot of things that I won't make me happy and a lot of money that I have to manage somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. Things are just things. They don't go too far.
No.
But you do need some things, obviously, and you have to feed your family and pay the bills and stuff. But yeah, it's good to have the balance with experience. I think is a lot more valuable in life than monetary stuff.
I couldn't agree with you more, man. So many people get stuck in the trap of the rat race or whatever, and they're working for retirement, but you've worked away your best physical years if you do that. Yeah. I'm going to retire at 60-something. Oh, well, guess what? People are living longer now. You're going to retire at almost 70. Great. Go sit on a beach with no job and then die of like heart disease or whatever, and after a couple of years, unfortunately. Yeah. And you totally miss out on your whole life if you don't make it happen as you're going.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, when I was 18, I would go to school for, a semester, and then I would go snowboard for a year, and then go for another semester or two, and then go snowboard for 6 months. And, 10 years later, I finally graduated, and some people think that's awful, but I think I was about just right. I was getting a good balance of both. I was using my youth to, go riding a lot and sharpen those kind of skills, and, just have real life experiences and instead of just, sitting in a classroom so that I could hurry and get a job and work in an office for the rest of my life. Like, that's no way to do it.
You beat me by a lot. I'm your age and I'm still in my first semester. I'm working on it.
Nice. You probably had a hell of a good life then.
Taking the slow path.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the slow path as long as you filled that path with a bunch of good life experiences,
Exactly. Well, I think we did it. Did you have anything else that you wanted to cover?
Oh, I don't know. We could go on for days, but we should probably just cut it short. It's been like an hour, hasn't it?
Yeah, just like an hour and 10 minutes. Where can people find you on the internet? Where can people find the Powsurf Chronicles, and where are you social media-wise?
So the Grassroots Powdersurfing website is www.powsurf.com. The Facebook is just Facebook.com/Powsurf. The Vimeo account that holds all the Chronicle goodies and all the good films is vimeo.com/Powsurf. Twitter.com/Powsurf. I think it's usually just the Powsurf handle for pretty much everything for all those social media networks anyways. Instagram is @Powsurf. That's a good one if you like Powsurfing porn. Yeah, and then check out White Waves, the film. Enjoy that. So, or I'm Jeremy Jensen. You can find me, I guess, my personal Facebook too. I don't get on it a whole lot, but I'm there.
Where do you spend the bulk of your time on social media? Is it Instagram?
I've tried to spend less and less time on social media. Instagram probably. I like Instagram because it's quick and it's you can tell a lot with a photo. You can show a lot with a photo. I don't know. One thing I've always tried to do with Grassroots is show people that it works. Instead of just posting pictures of a pretty shape. I want to actually show people that these things are in action and these things really do work and here's what's possible. So I like Instagram a lot, and then it's quicker and actually everybody sees your post. Facebook just doesn't even say, no one sees your posts anymore, and as a business page they want you to pay a bunch of cash just so people will see your posts, and so I don't really like to play that game.
Yeah, you got to pay to play on Facebook now. So, I don't like that either.
Yeah, I'm not really so much. I mean, I still use it to try to get stuff out there, but not so much anymore. Like on Instagram, all of your followers can see all of your posts, and that you show up in everyone's feed that wants you to. And then there's so many other good feeds out there of rad people putting making cool images that I really like. That I'm just a visual person. I think it communicates quicker and clearer, and so I try to keep that one going.
Well, Jeremy, man, thank you so much for spending an hour with us. Why don't you relax, get rid of your jet lag, go hang out with your daughter.
Right on, will do. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Not Snowboarding Podcast. To hear more episodes, go to www.notsnowboardingpodcast.com.